All right, it's another one of these Homeric Rhapsody things. It's about 10 seconds after I just finished the previous video. Where we currently are is in what's known in the modern era as Book 8 of the Iliad. Zeus just warned all the gods and goddesses not to interfere with the war. And as I mentioned last time, I don't really remember a lot of what happens in the rest of Book 8. I remember um, where we were in Book 7 in terms of like the status of the war, and I know where we have to get to for Book 9 to be, the events of Book 9 to be necessary. So it's just going to be a lot of me making stuff up until we get there. So let's see how that goes. I imagine this is going to end up being a lot shorter than the real Book 8. Well, let's say not the real Book 8, the Book 8 that we all know and love. Here we go. And thus, having dismissed all the gods and goddesses, and heading to Mount Ida, Zeus, son of Cronos, lord of the lightning, stood and viewed that conflict below. And under that mountain, all the men of the earth who eat Demeter's grain rose, and went to their meat and mead to prepare for the day. They clasped on their bronze greaves and put on those ankle clasps and tied the sandals and put on those bronze corselets and finally the flashing bronze helms with terrible horsehair crests and feathers sticking up forth. All were ready to make for that conflict. And thus did the son of Neleus for the Achaeans speak forth to give advice to all the men there. And he spake, Men, we shall take all the contingents and step forth today. This is a crucial hour for the Achaeans. There was fierce fighting on the battlefield yesterday, and we won many a rood of ground, but just as many had been taken back by the Trojans. It is as it was at that time when I took on a cattle raid against my father Neleus's wishes. He had told me that I was not old enough to go forth, and so I had to sneak forth, grab a horse and a contingent of men, and we went out onto the plains. Those Ilians who had denied us our prize at the games, we had come to take what was ours. And we fought a great battle which had gone this way and that, and seemed as if it would never end. But finally I had dishorsed so many men in that battle as to win glory among gods and men. All the names on the lips of every one of the Pylian swordsmen. Among the gods was Zeus, and among men was Nestor, son of Neleus. And so, men, we must do the same. Chariots to the front. All the men must assemble with the weaklings in the center and all the brave men around the outsides. Once again, there is no shame in standing in the center. Though your courage may flag today, it may be another man tomorrow. It is but natural. But be honest with yourselves, so that we may have all of the strongest-willed fighters on the outside, keeping honest the ones who think they may flag. Chariots, do not cast your spears, but rather stab them forth as you go past. That is the good old way that men had done it in the days of yore, and it had won many a battle among our cattle raids and more. And thus all the Achaeans, having heard this speech, stepped forth and went in a line. All the way down the orders were passed. hearing what Nestor had said, and each captain giving it orders of his own. And as they did, all the Achaeans moved forth in utter silence, like some army of ants viewed from that top of Mount Ida. They looked, not uttering a sound, such was their discipline in battle and all their training. The Myrmidons, for their part, on another day, today had been playing at quoits and wrestling with each other and running in the foot race, all of them eager for battle, now had been watching from the ridge, seeing all the armies step forth, and knowing that they could do nothing, as Achilles sat in his tent with the son of Menoetius, playing the lyre and feasting on his morning meat. Thus the Trojans too had been rallied forth by Hector, and by Aeneas, and by Sarpedon, and every captain of the various contingents all the way down the line, and they strode forth from the Scaean gate, all screaming like cranes who were crying out above the ocean waves, gulls and cranes who made their plaintive cries that sailors would hear from many a mile round. And so the two armies met on that field of battle, and the sky father Zeus held his puppet strings above them, and pulled out his scales, prepared to weigh them, and see which way they fell, one way or the other. All right, a bit, kind of recycling some stuff there. I just, made up some pieces about Nestor counseling his guys. I kind of just found a spot to give an excuse for him to tell the cattle raid story, because I'm pretty sure I missed the chance where he usually says it. Then I just had him tell the advice again about the weaklings going in the middle and the stronger guys going on the outside, and talking about the chariots stabbing instead of throwing their spears. All that stuff I'm pretty sure I already had him say, and I'm pretty positive he says that in book 3 or something. So it definitely, not my strongest moment, but again, if we were doing this as a performance, I guess in some ways we are, but if it was at a king's court or something and they asked for some story, it wouldn't, if they were saying tell us, the story of that battle when Zeus had forbidden the gods from fighting, up until the embassy to Achilles. You wouldn't necessarily be beholden to just saying the stuff that's in what we know as book 8. It would just be that you're trying to tell an entertaining story, whatever fits in there. There was no way that somebody could tell what we know as the Iliad all in one night of entertainment, or at a theater or something. Because even if you listen to it as an audiobook with no lyre accompaniment or musical interludes or anything, it's 12 to 14 hours. So you would never be able to sit there in a theater and hear the whole thing. So it would be broken up, and it would, tonight you're going to hear the story of this specific, episode. And it's not like they had a recording of what the other ones sounded like. So if you are here for this night of entertainment, you heard this one. And it doesn't really matter if he told, if Homer said the part about Nestor counseling his guys in a different part, because you might not have been at that part. It's a totally different performance, and it might have been in a different location and whatever. So all that to say, yes, it's a little strange for me to repeat that part, but it's, in some ways, I feel like it kind of is still fits the general vibe. And then from here, you know, we'll see what we can come up with for this battle. Essentially, we have to get it to a point where the embassy to Achilles becomes necessary, and that would involve the Trojans getting to a point where they can camp out on the plain at night. And that's all I remember, essentially. You know, who has a moment of glory, who gets killed, you know, what gods do what. Don't really remember any of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to try to make stuff up between here. Probably this will probably be the most relevant test of what I've been doing, you know, because we're doing all this in service of trying to make more effective written content for the game project I'm working on, where, you know, to write the flavor text and descriptions of items and character dialogue and stuff off the top of my head more easily. I'm trying to like get the spirit of all this Homeric stuff. And so far I've mostly been just telling the stuff that's already in the Iliad. But now I would be, for this one, we would be kind of like making up things or repurposing as needed. And that'll be probably the closest to what I will need to do for when the time comes to do that for the game. So we'll see how that goes. But until then, we'll just hope for the best.